Hey everybody, welcome to Neil Talks. My name's Neil and it's time to talk Lost. I have never put off doing a reaction or a video as long as I put off doing this one. This is basically my final thoughts on Lost. What my takeaways are at the very end of 6 excellent seasons of television. It would typically be what I would just say at the end of an episode. But by the time I was about halfway through watching the finale of Lost, I realized I wasn't going to be in the headspace at the end of the episode that I needed to be to have just a rational conversation about what the show was. It was such an emotional finale. There were so many heartwarming and heartbreaking scenes, and I think some tears may have been shed. And there were some really beautiful ideas in that finale, but it was an emotional finale, and I needed to be rational to say what I'm about to say. This show, it's all about finding that balance between emotional and rational, between faith and science, isn't it? And so I've been noodling around in my head ever since I watched the finale almost 2 months ago about exactly what I wanted to say here. And I still don't know what I want to say here. So don't be surprised if I ramble. Don't be surprised if I go off on some tangents. Don't be surprised if I end up in some conversational cul-de-sacs and I have to turn around and come back out. For those of you that have followed my Lost reactions, you should be used to it by now, but I have not written a script for this. I have not taken notes for this. This is going to be an extemporaneous discussion of a very intricate show. And I know that's not the smart way to do it, but I tried a handful of times to come up with a set of working notes for this discussion, and I never found anything that worked, which is why I kept putting it off. And putting it off, I honestly didn't know what to say. And I kind of had an epiphany this morning about why it was so hard. Have you ever had to deliver a eulogy? Have you ever had to speak at somebody's funeral or memorial service? Standing up in front of a crowd and just talking about somebody who's very, very close to you, who's no longer with you. That's essentially what I'm doing here. I'm delivering a eulogy for Lost. Lost is always going to have a very special place in my heart. It's tied so closely to the birth and the development of this channel, which means a ton to me. It was the first community I really found online that supported me, that encouraged me, that educated me. And so my Lost experience, I can't separate the watching of the show from the reacting to the show. My Lost experience would be entirely different if I just watched it by myself this last year instead. I don't know whether it would be a better, worse, or just different experience, but it would definitely be different. It would not be the same experience because so much of my experience came through these discussions I'm doing now, my preambles, my postscripts, my taking notes, my reading comments. So Lost is a weird animal for me to evaluate. Is it one of the very best shows I have ever seen? No, but don't flame my comment section because it's one of my favorite shows of all time. I had so much fun with Lost. I love the mystery box nature of it. I loved that it made me continually try to figure things out. I was constantly asking questions, guessing what's going on, trying to wrap my head around the newest crazy thing that happened. And for someone like me who loves solving puzzles, this was perfect in that regard. I had so much fun. I had so much emotional investment in this show. So many wonderfully fleshed out characters. Really well written, really well performed. Characters went on amazing arcs over the course of 6 seasons or less. Almost always it felt natural, deserved, earned. These characters went through some crazy, traumatic, and trying times to come out the other side better for the experience. Christian wasn't lying when he said to Jack in the very last episode, your time on the island was the most important time in your life. And these people that you spent that time with are the most important people to you. Which isn't normal, but it rings true. It makes sense in this circumstance. For the vast majority of us, if we went through the same sort of thing that our characters went through on Lost, and we all went to a flash sideways until we reunited with the people that mattered most to us, for the vast majority of us, that would heavily be our family. Maybe a few close friends, but it wouldn't be this odd group thrown together by chance or by Jacob, debate below, whose lives became so intertwined, interwoven, inextricably linked that even in death they remain together. That's really beautiful. It's really cool, and it's in my mind it was a beautiful way of finishing the show, putting a bow on it, and coming up with something that probably hadn't been guessed too much by the fandom. That's the challenge of doing a puzzle box show, I think. A mystery box. Because once you get the fans excited, once you get them guessing, there's going to be so much guessing out there. There's going to be chat rooms. There's going to be Reddit threads. There's going to be analysis and of frame by frame analysis of clips and scripts and all the rest of it. There are clever fans out there everywhere, and some people are going to figure it out. And how, as a producer, do you deal with the show that's all about the mystery when the answer is out there for anyone to find because of the internet? How do you deal with that? If the consensus of guess out there is what you were going for, do you stick with what you were going for, or do you change it so that you still surprise the maximum number of fans at the end? And if you do change it, do you run the risk of it not ringing true when it is revealed? I don't know. It's a very interesting question. I don't know what the producers and writers of the show had to deal with. I don't know what kind of conversations they had in the writers' room, but I think they nailed the landing. Can you write a conclusion to a 6-year show that satisfies everyone? Of course not. And when you're writing a conclusion to a show that's intelligent and a little bit convoluted and a little bit confusing, especially for those who weren't paying super close attention all the way through and maybe missed a few episodes in season 5 or who knows what, maybe that ending is confusing. But for anyone who's a proper fan of the show, for anyone who has been there from day one and pays attention, I thought it was incredibly clear. I don't think there was any confusion, and I thought it was a beautiful solution to 6 years of mystery. and I really appreciated it. Is Lost perfect? No, of course not. I don't think any TV show or movie is perfect, but some get close. Some get much closer than Lost did. I think Lost was great, but they made missteps. They had to make changes on the fly that make the narrative a little bumpy in places. And I'm okay with all of it because the overriding story arc of 100+ episodes is so much fun. But would I say it's one of my top 3 shows of all time? No, but it doesn't matter because, like I said, it's one of my favorite shows. It was so much fun. Some shows you watch and you go, that was amazing, but you don't feel the urge to rewatch. I've been holding off rewatching Lost, but I'll be diving into it soon as there's time in my schedule, because I know that rewatch is going to be so rewarding. I know that I'm going to see things in seasons 1 and 2 that were there only for people that already knew the story, completely hidden in plain sight because we didn't know what was going on yet. So I'm really looking forward to that new layer of the viewing experience. And I think that's one of the reasons why a show like Lost keeps such a strong fan base, even 18 years after it debuted. There are fans who rewatch it constantly. I am currently loving watching other reactors react to this show. It's a blast to see where people reacted the same to me. I love hearing alternate theories, stuff that like, oh, I wonder why I didn't think of that. And I don't know whether they're right or I am, but I love that it's a completely different viewpoint. And it makes me think. It makes me wonder. It makes me want to rewatch it again. So, yeah, you can bet I'll be rewatching and chirping in my 2 cents here and there on other on other reactors pages, etc. It's a show I'm going to continue to generate content for. This right now is not the time for me to talk about my favorite characters or my favorite episodes or favorite seasons or my favorite story moments or couples or any of that sort of stuff. This is me trying to wrap my head around why this show works so well. Because the really interesting thing in my mind is, while I was watching the show, I was reacting very scientifically. I was asking questions. I was trying to figure things out. I was tracking the timeline and trying to figure out what was going on. And those questions were what kept me excited and focused on the story and loving the show. And then we got the end. We got 6/17. We got the conclusion of this show, and I didn't have any more questions. And it's not because every question was answered. It was because enough questions were, and the others didn't matter to me. I was given such a satisfying ending, an emotionally satisfying ending, which I didn't realize I needed, but I got. I got this wonderfully satisfying ending. And all the questions that had driven me to that point evaporated. I got answers to most of them. If I had gotten answers to none of them, it would have been frustrating. It would have kept turning in the back of my head. But what about? But what about? But what about? For the last 2 months, I haven't had a single but what about. I know there are a few things that are unexplained. It doesn't matter. Enough was explained. I understood that entire convoluted story. And I don't think it's because I'm, quote, smart or clever or whatever. I think it's there for anyone to understand. Anyone who just watches the show and pays attention. So yeah, I don't have any questions anymore. So It's not about needing explanations. I think so many people have said, "Oh, you should react to Lost Explained," and I may watch those, but I don't feel like I need somebody to tell me what was going on. I feel like I have a good enough sense of that, and when I rewatch the show, my views will certainly evolve. I will catch new things. I will learn more. But I'm already at this stage where I am so satisfied by the conclusion of a show that I don't have that need. I don't feel inquisitive about Lost anymore. Somewhere along the way, it became an emotionally satisfying show for me instead of an intellectually satisfying show. Despite the fact that it was, yeah, that it was the questions that were bringing me back every week and constantly keeping my brain turning. What I really needed to walk away from the show satisfied was an emotional ending, and it was through so many of the characters. Obviously, Jack's arc is our lead character's arc throughout, and it's about letting go and having faith and knowing that you do have it. You are capable. But Jax wasn't the only arc, not by a long shot. Look at how much Sawyer evolved. Look at how much Hurley evolved. Look at Locke and Ben and Kate and Juliet and Sun and Jin and Saeed and Charlie and like so many rich storylines, character arcs in this show. Desmond and Daniel and Miles and so much heart in this show. So much love in this show. Yeah, that's what made it special for me. That's that's what let me walk away at the end of season 6 so content. Yeah, I wasn't sure how long I was going to talk here today. I wasn't sure if I'm honestly not sure right now whether I've got more to say or whether that's it. When you give a eulogy, I always thought the important thing isn't to talk about a person's accomplishments or their history, everything they did and everything they achieved. It's about the important thing is to talk about what kind of person they were. And that's a more emotional discussion. So if we're going to eulogize Lost, we shouldn't be talking about how good was the writing, how good was the filmmaking, how tight was the script, how few loose ends were left. I think it's much more important to ask yourself, how did this show make you feel? What was your emotional response to this show? And my emotional response to this show is on record, public record right now. Feel free to check, rewatch those reactions anytime if you want. They're not going anywhere. So yeah, this show, I connected with it, and I will always think of it fondly. And on some level, I will always be actively watching it. I don't know how often I'll rewatch, but if there's a reactor out there that I've discovering Lost, I'll be tuning in. I'll be reading the comment section. I'll be around. I'll be remembering Lost. And things don't truly die if there are people still alive who remember them. So is Lost dead? No, it's over, but it's not dead. Lost lives. That's what makes it a great show. Anyway, thank you guys so much for listening. I know this was a bit of a weird one, but it needed to be done. I feel better for doing it. And until the next time, everybody, take care, stay healthy, and we'll see you soon. Cheers.